So I'm at a totally new stretch of stream, creek, whatever you want to call it, and thought I'd talk a little bit about exploring new waters. If you can tell, the water is pretty dirty. I mean, I can't really see bottom, so I don't really have an idea of what depth looks like, or necessarily what's in the water, if they're moving, what any of it looks like necessarily. It does look like the water level is low, whatever that means for this particular area. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is, choice of nymphs when you're in a situation kind of setting up brand new. Because that water's dirty, one of the things that I'm looking at doing is going for more higher visibility flies. So I put a little, this isn't necessarily a squirmy worm, but kind of the same pattern. It's more of the yarn pattern, I guess. And I've also tied on a red copper john nymph. Let's see if I can get it to cooperate with me here. But little red copper john nymph, a little bit of flashback on it. And really the purpose of that is just to have it show up a little bit better in this murky water. Don't get scared of stained water. I know a lot of guys will see it and they can't see fish, so they don't think they're there. They are. It does get tougher when you're doing this brand new, like me, don't know where the fish are, don't know where the pools are, etc. So really just trying to get something that hopefully if a fish sees it, it's going to trigger it to bite even in this murky water. So the water is pretty well stained, and I walked up a different section of the river on the other side of a bridge here, and the water was almost worse. So just more stain to it. It was slower moving, and I don't know how true it is, but I've always heard rainbows really like faster moving water. So it brought me back to this side of the bridge here, and now what I'm kind of just targeting is I see some faster moving water that's tailing off into what I'm assuming is a deeper section or a pool here, and that's where fish can sit. I'm seeing some rocks in the water. I know in one of my other videos I talked about kind of that pocket cushion behind rocks, so I'm gonna just kind of nymph this. However, one of the things is I am starting this, and because of just the way the stream is here, the creek is here, I have to fish it walking upstream. So one of the things that I did is I actually walked kind of by this marsh here all the way back around so that I could work this pool kind of from the back forward. Now had I walked on the side here, I probably would have spooked every trout in this pool that I would have started to fish. So sounds simple, but little things like that can really make a difference in just overall how you tackle a new bit of water. Oof. Well, that seemed like it was a hit. I wasn't really paying attention, I'll be honest with you. Yep, there we go. Well, that did not take long. So I had one hit there and I missed it because I was looking the other direction. My indicator went down, and that's on that little copper john. And I chose a red one just because it's going to show up a little bit better in the stained water. It looks like a nice little rainbow here. Ate that copper john here, as you can see. Get that off quick. Yeah, they're a little scuffed up here. I'm sure they're stockers just based on the condition of them. So we'll get them back here and try that same pool again. So one of the things I'm going to do is, since I hooked up on that first cast, I'm going to just drift a few more times in a few different areas at that same depth and just kind of see, is it the right depth? Is it not? Am I drifting right? Right now it looks like I might be tapping the bottom. That's kind of my main concern. And the reason I say I might be tapping the bottom is if you're looking at my indicator, it doesn't seem like it's flowing the exact same rate as some of the foam in these foam lines here. And if that's the case, it's either dragging on bottom or, it has too much resistance from the weights that are on it as well. So now that I'm kind of seeing it, it's close, but maybe not quite there. So what I'll probably do because of that is just try to move my indicator down a few inches to make that whole rig a little bit shallower, as it looks like it's catching on the bottom as it's drifting through here. Yeah, it looks like it might still be catching on the bottom. And normally I would probably be a little bit more gentle with my indicator. Honestly, if you're watching this and you're slamming that indicator in, I absolutely am. I'm a little bit less concerned about it because of the stained water. So I would probably be putting a little bit more thought into my casts if the water wasn't so stained. that was very weird. I can't take too much credit for that. He happened to bite literally as I was taking my indicator up. Sometimes that does happen. Alright, about the same size, which I'm guessing is probably the stocker size that they have in here. I'm gonna get him back right away, but little rainbow, about the same size. Off he goes. You know, one of the other things that tells me about the fact that he bit as I was lifting it up, honestly points me towards potentially swinging flies as well. And I did bring another rod, so I might set it up. I have it set up for dry flies, which is not really anything hatching, and this water quality is really not conducive to dry flies. But if you're pulling it up and they're hitting like that, having a little dry fly, or sorry, a wet fly, and swinging those wet flies through can be hugely effective, especially in some stained water like this. And they're kind of targeting and looking for stuff to feed on as it comes past. Oh, that was huge. I don't know how I didn't get that bite on him. That indicator went about a foot underwater. So, you know, one of the things that you might ask yourself when you're first starting is like, how long do I spend at a spot or a pool, you know, if I'm in new water? Well, here you can see, you know, I caught one fish. I drifted the pool for probably another 5 to 8 minutes here and changed my depth once to kind of see if that was the case. Maybe the first one was a little lucky, you know, maybe I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. So I changed the depth, gave it another maybe 5 minutes, and started to kind of fan my drifts out quite a bit more in this section of water. And once I actually started to do that, that's where this kind of second one pulled up here. So, you know, what I would tell you is, you know, I kind of go almost on that 5-minute rule of like, I'm going to spend 5 minutes. If I think there's still fish in here, especially if I've caught one or I'm seeing fish or they're rising, I'm going to do a little bit of adjustments for 5 minutes. That doesn't work, maybe make another adjustment. Once you've kind of made 2 or 3 adjustments and you're just not getting them to commit, at that point, you know, if you're exploring a new body of water, spend the time, you know, searching out some new areas, learning where those fish are. You can always come back to that section if you want to, but I think it's a good rule of thumb, you know, that rule of 3s, and I kind of take it in 5-minute intervals of trying something. It allows me to get 10, 15 really good drifts through there before I kind of call it quits or make changes. There we go. I think that might even be, well, I think that other one we hooked up was a little bit bigger, but still not a bad trout. If you're wondering, I moved down a little bit here just so I could get a little bit better drift going. You know, my line was starting to slack up, and it was really starting to slack up right where I wanted that better drift to kind of be at. And so it was bowing right at this kind of apex of the curve here of the stream, and I didn't want that because I think that's where a lot of these fish are sitting, is right at that kind of apex. Again, pretty cookie cutter size here. Copper John right in the side of the mouth, comes out real nice and quick. And again, really pretty little rainbow here. Looks like some hatchery damage here. So I ended up going with a little kind of caddis pupa nymph here, and then I still got my my Copper John trailing behind it that I was catching the others on. So we'll see. I was trying to match a little bit closer to that what I thought were caddis. We'll see how this works. You know, if I start getting some bites on it, we'll know it's good. If not, I might change it out again and look for a more productive nymph. So I've been fishing this, you know, heavier current water over here. And one of the things as I was kind of sitting watching this water here is that you get the heavier current here, but there's another foam line that's actually forming on the edge over here. It's slower water, and generally that means the trout are going to go there because they don't have to exert as much energy. So actually the first cast over there ended up having one that I lost. I didn't have on the GoPro. So we're going to drift back through here again and see if we can't make something happen. There we go. That looks like a little brown. I'm not totally sure though. So I was just trying to get that drift right. I hooked up on one over there, a little bit bigger than this one, and was just trying to get back in that foam line again correctly. Yeah, this guy's a little brown. Yeah, these almost look, I wonder if these browns are stocked or not. The rainbows obviously are, just due to the condition of them, but this guy looks a little bit better. And he actually ate that caddis, so it turns out that was a great switch over. So red dots on this guy, super vibrant. So just a little guy. Well, and not the most graceful release, but off he goes. And so I talked a little bit about that switch in Nymphs, and I switched to that caddis pupa because I was seeing those caddis nymphs, and that's actually what this guy bit on, was the top caddis and not that bottom copper john that I caught the rest of those rainbows on. So just goes to show, even if you have one fly that's productive, you know, if you start keying in on what they want, it's better to have two productive flies than one productive fly. So I just nymphed this section behind me, and I'll show you. Actually caught quite a few fish here, but I wanted to take a second and explain how I did it. You know, this is totally new water. I've never been here before, and I want to talk about why I selected what I did. So behind me, you'll see I got this bridge. I've got a lot of water flow, and I've kind of got this bend. And unfortunately, just the way that this is set up, I have to fish this walking downstream, right? So fish towards me. Luckily though, I've got some stained water, so that helps prevent, you know, a lot of the spooking of the trout that would normally happen. So what I did is I took a really wide cut all the way around because I was walking downstream, and actually started the very end of that pool. And at that pool, I ended up picking up 4 or 5 fish after I kind of figured out what the depth was, you know, sinkers, indicator, all that fun stuff. And eventually just worked my way forward here until I started to catch some fish up in this section. And if you can kind of see here, I've got a few different foam lines. I've got this heavier current here, but actually on the farther side on the right here, I've got a second foam line. That water is much calmer. It's not as fast and turbulent. And that's where these fish are generally going to sit. It's also why I caught them in the back of that pool, because this water is going to be much faster. But you see right at that bend, the water actually starts to slow down a little bit. So that's where those fish are going to congregate, is basically at the end of that deeper pool. And for a couple of reasons. One, as the food is getting pushed with this heavier current, it's going to start to collect in the slower part of the water, right? So as the water slows, all the nymphs, the larvae, everything that tumbles is going to start to fall closer to the bottom where those trout are going to be feeding. The second part of this too is trout don't want to work harder than they have to. They're not going to sit in this really heavy turbulent water when they can sit in much calmer water, exert less energy, and still get the same amount of food. So it's kind of basic survival principles when you think about targeting them. But this is a really good example, you know, as I'm targeting a brand new stretch of water, just exactly how to go about looking for some key things that's going to catch you some fish. Oh boy, that one stung. That was a real nice fish. What do you even say? I don't know. It's been trying to get this mend down correctly, and there's a log that I don't know if you can see on here, and that's what I was really worried about hitting. And so I didn't really commit to that. I didn't really commit to the bite, and just kind of really lazily set the hook on him, and obviously did not did not end up connecting. Oh, holy shit. I think that's that same fish. That's a real nice brown. So one of the interesting things I'll talk about here is, you might have seen it, but I started to swing my fly right in front of that log. And I talked about this in one of my other videos on how to swing. And it can be super deadly in situations like this. Man, he just does not want to give me an inch. I can be super deadly in situations like this where you can swing it right in front of that log where they're at and kind of pull them out from underneath it when you may not have a really good drift. Also, one of the things, because I got that bottom dropper on there, I'm trying to get them away from any type of timber or logs, because that bottom dropper can actually get stuck and it can cause that top hook to basically come out. So I think he is ready to be landed here. There is a really nice brown. I'm pretty positive that's that same one that that bit earlier. And you know, one of the things you'll see here, I'm gonna keep them in the water, but that caddis pupa, and I talked earlier about switching to have 2 effective flies rather than just 1. Well, here's a really great example as to why that matters. So I got the guy in the net right now, but I want to show you quick on the camera just how big this guy is. And probably, you know, not a monster, but this is probably a solid 15-inch brown trout here. Just a really pretty brown. So I'm gonna go ahead and get him back in the water. I don't think we're gonna do any underwater shots today. It's just too murky for that. So got him in the good old net here, and we're just gonna give him a quick release to take off. So I know I talked a little bit about it when I was fighting that fish, but what a good example of how to swing flies. And you know, it sounds silly, but even with an indicator you can do that in the right instance. And that's all I was doing there. There's a submerged log that I knew I'd get hooked up on or snagged on if I let my indicator rig go through. So I stopped that probably about 2 or 3 feet early of the log. And what it basically allows my nymph rig to do is, as it's sitting, you know, vertically in the water, it's going to start to kind of bow out, and as my line pulls it, it's going to swing those flies and kind of in a pattern that will drift it across almost that whole log. And so, you know, maybe not by purpose, you're going to cover that whole log just by swinging it, whereas a normal drift through, you'd only cover one part of it. So super effective, and obviously that's what made this guy go nuts and just slam that indicator. So really cool catch. You know, for first time on this stream, I'm about 7 trout in right now after about 2 hours, so can't complain. And again, it's a lot of targeting, you know, that specific pockets of water I've been talking about. You know, I'm following the foam lines, and even though I can't see where the pools are, I'm watching my indicator to see if it's bouncing off the bottom. If it is, I'm raising it up so that I've got, you know, less depth in the entire indicator. And really from there, I'm just working on really focusing on getting a good drift. And to do that, I'm watching the foam on the water, and I'm making sure my indicator is going the same speed. So all those little things. But when you're looking for water, exploring new water, you know, those are the few pieces to take a look at. You know, where does that current combine into slower water? Where are those pools? And then it's just a matter of kind of perfecting your rig to get you in that position. Yeah. Boy, these fish are hardy in here. So again, that top caddis is the ticket. Really happy I decided to change out that squirmy worm, because every fish since that initial pool has come off of this caddis fly. There we go. Oh boy. Oh, there. If you have a fish flop like that, don't let it fall down. It'll ruin its slime coat if it falls in here. You know, if you put it against your clothing, it's going to do the same thing. Better to just kind of push it out. So that's what I did. Well, all in all, not a bad day, especially for new water. I think I ended up probably about 10 trout caught, I think, total. I don't know if every one of them is going to be in the video or not. And probably lost, I don't know, 5 more at least. So really impressed with this little stretch of water. It's obviously stocked, just kind of given the condition of all the trout, and the rainbows, you know, missing some fins, and they're all gnarled up. So it is what it is. I mean, I don't mind catching stocked trout by any means, but you know, hopefully you got a little bit of an idea of how to read some water. Again, you know, if I can give a piece of advice to, you know, people brand new to trout fishing, it's focus on the deep water and focus on, you know, those foam lines. And from there, you know, it's really just targeting rising fish. And don't be afraid of stained water. You know, I honestly probably, you know, lucked into the best conditions I could have to explore a new stream. You know, obviously the dry fly bite was not going to happen just given the color of the water, and because of that I was able to really dial in nymphing and really kind of figure out what they were looking for. So all in all, a good day, and hopefully you pulled a little bit of knowledge out of it, at least how to check for maybe some local streams to you if you've never seen them before. If you did find it helpful, do me a favor, you know, again, the old YouTube thing, but like, comment, and subscribe. It does help me as a new channel as I'm trying to grow and you know, continue to get more and more content out. And you know, leave me some thoughts of what you'd like to see. You know, if any of these topics are interesting to you, you want to see more specifics, let me know what you're looking for, and would love to make a video on it. Other than that, I will see you on the next one.